Hey everyone, Joey here with a little behind the scenes kind of thing. Literally just me jotting down notes as efficiently as possible so I don't forget later. And it gives you guys an option to weigh in on this as well. I always like a second opinion, and I always like changing things around and seeing if something works better than the first time I thought of it. So, a while ago, I picked up this larger cubicle unit from next door. They were throwing it out, and I just cleaned it up a bit. It was able to store games with it. There's 6 different columns, or cubes, whatever these are, to store games, and they basically work about the same way. They don't have a lot of room because of the nature of the game cases. It's better to fit them stacking upward than like a book on a bookshelf going horizontally. And that kind of thing I've done for a while. I've done in other areas before, but I'm not always fond of it, especially because you're applying a lot of weight to each one, especially on the bottom. More of them on top of it applying weight. And it's a little easier to read them if they're like a bookshelf, just sitting this way. If you have to pick one out, it's easier to know where to put it back instead of the next one just slumping into place. But I do it this way because sometimes you just gotta make do with something. But I would like to try changing it up a bit. And I think one of the biggest factors of it is obviously the number of games. This will change for everybody. So with a lot of games, yes, I did have to compromise to that. But maybe it could work better with a unit like this, where there's already a lot more width per shelf in order to just lay them out like a bookshelf. Problem is, mathematically, I ran the numbers. It's kind of working like that, but it will have a few things holding it back. I won't be able to fit as many games this way, same as I wouldn't be able to on the unit before it, despite my expectations. This is another unit that I picked up from the area, again, for free. It was just being thrown away, so it's like, okay, this doesn't cost me anything. It's just a little bit of a time commitment in order to, bring it back here, but it's fine if it doesn't work this way, or I could use it somewhere else if need be. So basically the math comes to each of these units are about 11 inch by 11 inch, almost perfectly square. I don't remember if it's 11 widthwise, but it's pretty close to it. It's also designed with the same kind of dimensions as these, so I might actually stick one of those up there if this is used for something else. It's usually pretty helpful. But the ones in here, it's 28 across. I don't remember if that's the interior or the exterior. That might change it a little bit. By 10. So it's almost the same height as each of those, but it's got a lot more width. So I don't know. It sounded like at first it might work better. Now, I could pursue another option, and one of the things I also like about this unit, it's nice and wide where it can fit into a space nice and wide behind it. Like you can see how if I, line these up next to each other, it'll still fit before the corner of the wall. This game rack can always move. It might not stay here if I put this thing here, but I could always rearrange it to something else later, as I did with a few other ones before this. And I also like that it's at a lower height. Now, normally in this space, the height is king, as the rule goes for me. Where there isn't a lot of width, take advantage of the height, and this definitely does. But the lower height here actually helps because then it'll create less crowded area on top of it, where the light switch and the key rack and everything are. Now, there is always the option of, why don't you just move the stuff on top of here? Well, some of it is gaming related, so it would sit here or nearby in either case. So, if this was lower, it would just make that a lot easier. But I do know there's a couple other things I just have to move around here that don't have to be here, like the Bop It or the bongos. It's something that could easily get moved somewhere else. It's not related to any of this. There are some things that I also been moving around for the other shelves along the bottom here for a little while. So virtually this thing has nothing in it. There's a DK bongos in there, but that could easily move, and there's always other things I could put in there. This did have games in it before, so I could always put games back in there, even if I have to move the other ones from the other unit, or the rack that you saw on the end. There's games over there, still moving up a lot of other things around here, by the way. So, it'll get more accessible over time. There's also things from the closet that I've taken out, so I could put those back in there, which could also free up some space. And then there's also the question of this whole shelf, which would be prime real estate for putting the video games there, because it's already got a lot of width to it. In fact, more width than this boy unit. So that would work really well for 1 or 2 different systems for libraries of games. The problem? I already have it used for these, Disney Infinity and Nintendo Amiibo figures, which is really nice for display. I do like the display for it. I've had it pretty much since setting up this whole area months ago. I just don't use the figures. They are technically used first for a gaming peripheral and a display second, and I have not played the games associated with these in quite some time, even before moving here. So it's really been shifted to being a display. But if I really need something more practical for that space, I could always put these back in the plastic baskets I had them in, which were in the closet, and, reuse them when I need to get back to those games. Not pivotal for me to display them, but it looks nice if I do. So, there's kind of the conundrum is, do I exchange the furniture here, or do I use this thing somewhere else? And even if I do use this one here, do I stack up the games, or do I lay them across? Or do I even change the other unit to go with it? There's also the one in my room that does a similar thing as an entire full-scale bookshelf, which we'll take a look at in just a moment, because the top of this one has a lip, and technically there is more room beyond that lip. But do I really want to crowd that whole thing up because of space, or is it just going to make it harder to get to the games? So we're going to walk over to the bedroom and take a look at that unit, which pretty much has been like that for quite some time. At least a couple months or so, give or take, a couple games moving here and there, a couple systems moving a little bit. But this has the same thing. There's a lip up there. There are games on that top shelf, but they don't all reach the top of the shelf, even including the lip. You can even see from here where the top of the N64 games sit. So this still has enough room where I don't put another game or so up here, whether or not it can fit that. No, it doesn't actually fit it, or if it does, it would be really squeezed. But it's good that it doesn't have another game up there, going all the way to the roof, so I can actually move these around. I can pick up the ones off the top of the shelf, I can move these across and slide one out, but the same problem persists. I will have to remember the alphabetical order in which I put these in to put them back. There's not a definitive, open space or anything to say, oh, it goes right here. You just kind of have to remember it. But I don't know if that's really difficult or bothersome. There are still a couple areas in here that I'm still working out, but similar premise. So I also wonder about that for a lot of video games in general, if there's a weight issue, like with having so many games or game cases stacked on top of each other, if it's going to, weigh down the ones underneath it. That's why the racks are good, because they're already weighted on the metal bars, so they're not stacking on top of each game itself. Though, I'm still deciding on that, but at least that's something that I've been considering, redoing the area and trying to improve things all along. So if one unit isn't used here, it will get used somewhere else, and whether or not video game related might have a whole new purpose. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. Hopefully I didn't make it too confusing. I'll talk to you later.